Hey everyone, and welcome to D&D Horror Stories with D&D Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a player that invites his stepmom to his Exandria D&D campaign, but then regrets it. A story about a player that has to be a contrarian about everything in a game, and much more. So with the preamble out of the way, let's get into these Dungeons & Dragons horror stories. I have invited my stepmom to play with us. This may have been a mistake. By Reddit user, Orgalot. So, I'm a 36-year-old dude. My dad has been a pretty good dad to me, but he was quite a terrible husband to my mom. And a few years back, they got divorced. Mom's happy, dad's happy, and the divorce was amicable, so all is well. Well, about a year after the divorce, my dad started dating Alice, a fake name. Alice is 39, and they got married 2 years ago. Me and Alice actually get along super well. She's into a lot of the stuff that I'm into, and even the stuff that she's not into, she's at least aware of. My dad marrying her actually improved my relationship with him, and my siblings, since her being around makes me and my wife visit a lot more often. And since she loves hosting and is overall a lot of fun, we actually think she's a great addition to the family. At some point, it turns out, Alice got really into The Legend of Vox Machina, the Critical Role animated series, in case there's literally anyone on this sub that's not familiar with it. Basically a retelling of their actual play series. When she told me that, I made a series of mistakes, which resulted in the most awkward few months of my life. I have a group of friends, and we play an Exandria campaign. We started it on 5th edition, but when that whole Wizards of the Coast OGL fiasco happened, we transferred to Pathfinder 2nd edition, but we kept the setting and the plot unchanged. I personally am not great into Critical Role, and haven't actually watched The Legend of Vox Machina, but my group is great, and the DM is a wonderful storyteller and makes the best NPCs. When Alice told me that she really enjoyed The Legend of Vox Machina, I got really excited and told her about the campaign, and she in turn also got really excited. She never actually played tabletop RPGs before, but was excited to try, and was a self-proclaimed theater kid, so role-playing would not be an issue. I obviously, and at one point, to my great regret, got excited too. I love Alice. Alice is great. My group is great. This could only mean good things. So I ran this by my group, a game master with 4 players, and they all were pretty cool with having her. Though some jokes were made about my, quote, hot stepmom, though they haven't yet met her, so I accepted this as good-natured ribs. I taught her the basics of Pathfinder 2nd edition, and gave her a rundown of the campaign thus far, and I also helped her create her character. It was a swashbuckler, loosely inspired by Jack Sparrow and Scanlan. She was incredibly excited, and I was too. So excited that I failed to see the literal parade of red flags spelling, "Oh no," about what this character concept was. Like, sure, what I got from her backstory kept referring to all the people she seduced, and all the hearts she broke. But that was just flavor, right? Right? Wrong. She shows up to session 1, and was her usual self. She's fun, she's charming, and her introduction is great. We're in a bit of a bind with a boss fight, and her character shows up to basically save our asses. She still needs a bit of help, but oh my god, she's a magnificent role player. Her attacks and feints are all super descriptive. She's receptive to critique. She knows enough about the rules to keep combat flowing. It's great, and the character is goofy and charming, and she does some silly accent which everyone loves, and is very vulgar, like a pirate should be. By session's end, everyone is fawning over her, and I'm the group MVP for bringing her. This is par for the course. Heck, I love that woman to bits, and I am not at all surprised by this. We all leave feeling great. Then the next session rolls around, and crap starts hitting the fan. See, we're playing on a physical table, but we have a group Discord, and our game master uses a tablet to show NPC art, and some NPC in town is very hot. Alice begins flirting with the NPC, and I think this is just, you know, she's playing a charming character. She's being charming. Except it keeps getting more serious and worse. Now, my entire party is deeply invested in Alice's character's love life. Entire sessions are wasted on her going on dates with this NPC, and buying clothes in preparations for said dates, and helping him resolve some side quest the Game Master clearly wrote purely to have the NPC get more screen time. By this point, I have spent like 3 sessions listening to my stepmom flirting with my Game Master. I'm wishing that the ground would swallow me whole. When we finally leave that town and reach the next one, I think things might finally turn around. But no, she remains incredibly flirty and said that she made no commitment to that guy. I am still sitting there listening to her flirt with this guy, played by the Game Master, though now he's doing a different accent. I regret inviting her. I want to die, and the party is loving it. I don't know if it's because she was the only woman at the table, and they were mostly single guys, and her character flirted with their player characters too, but her presence just shifted the entire campaign in a way that made it super awkward for me. But it got worse. We were having a campfire talk, and her character opened up about some trauma in her backstory, and my character, a cleric of the Raven Queen, talks to her about loss, mourning, accepting death, all that good stuff, since I'm playing him as insightful. And Alice, bless her heart, is acting her heart out. She looks me in the eye. There's tears forming in her eyes, and she's having a character moment, an important one. But me? I am suddenly sick to my stomach because I realize what she's doing. She's flirting with my character. I am now sitting here, looking my frickin' stepmom in the eye, and am having to play out a scene of romantic tension with her. And this isn't just flirting, mind you. I see the plot hooks she's dangling. She talks about how surface level her connections to other people always are, but how she seeks something deep, yada yada. I see what this is foreshadowing for. She wants to ship our characters. And it's the worst, because remember, the other members of my group are strangers to her, so there was still some reservation. But with me, we're friends, we're family. She lets herself go all out. She puts a hand on my knee, and she looks me in the eye. For a moment, I worry that she's going to, literally, go for a kiss. She didn't, thank God. Everyone thinks the scene is friggin' spectacular, and the session ends on a high note, though not for me. I am deeply uncomfortable. I have now spent half an hour awkwardly flirting with my stepmom. This is gross. This is probably the most awkward I have been in my life. The only bright side is that this was a breaking point for me, and things got better afterwards. Alice drives me home, and on the way, she notices I'm kinda off, so she asks me what's up, and I tell her. She is now the reddest I have ever seen, and she's super apologetic. She's covering her face and won't look at me. She explains that she just thought that this was what playing tabletop RPGs was, since this was what they did on the show, and the flirting and the dating were all kinda just part of it, like theater. And she's so sorry for making me uncomfortable. I'll make it clear, she wasn't being aggressive or overly sexual or anything like that. It was just a very uncomfortable situation for me. I apologize for maybe not making things clear and stopping the scene when I felt it was inappropriate, and we decide to talk it out with the group over Discord and explain the situation. We do so the next day, and everyone's pretty cool about it. They are pretty chill dudes overall. we established that Alice and her character are no longer to flirt with me, and maybe turn down the flirting overall. And she does. Things improve a lot after that, and she's still playing with us to this day. Alice is genuinely a wonderful person, and I love her. But she is also my stepmother. And for those horrible, awkward 30 minutes, she was trying to flirt with me. And I will never let her live this down. And thankfully, we can laugh about it now. Like, sometimes she'll ask for the salt, and I'll go, quote, "Do you need salt? Or do you need a real, deep connection?" Well, that certainly had to be a bit awkward. Though I do have to say that nobody was in the wrong here at all. OP's stepmom had never played a tabletop RPG before, so her only frame of reference was Critical Role, and they do romantic roleplay all the time in that show. I can understand her doing so, especially since she designed her character partially off of Scanlan, which was basically the horniest character in that campaign and anime. And she probably just thought that it wouldn't be an issue because it was all make-believe. And I can also understand OP's perspective of her role-playing romance with NPCs, and eventually his character, making him uncomfortable, as it was his stepmom. This is why Session 0 is so important in D&D, and it is probably a good idea to have a mid-campaign Session 0 whenever a new player joins, to try and avoid situations like these. What one player may be comfortable with, another player might not. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this whole fiasco. No real quote bad guy here, just a lack of above-table communication. And at least the both of them can laugh about the whole situation now. Let's move on. This is why I'm not running games anymore. I don't even know where to begin with this one. By Reddit user, Alaskan Virgo. I had recently moved in with my fiance in their hometown. Their parents and sibling wanted to try out D&D for the first time and knew I was a DM, so asked if I could run for them. They were basically family at this point, so I was happy to. I decided to run the simple Dragon of Icespire Peak campaign to ease them in. I helped them all create characters, and here's how the party turned out. My fiancé was a cleric, their mother was a ranger, their brother was a paladin, and the father was a barbarian. All was great, but there were some issues I had with one of the characters. The mother wanted her character to be a scared little human girl, I think around 11 years old. This was not a problem, until our third session. Things were running slowly, mostly due to them being new, and the party had just gotten to the inn in Phandalin. I explained that the party could now really get to know each other and have a big roleplay session. Not too long into this, however, the father's 40-year-old Dragonborn barbarian begins to make some alarming advances on the mother's character. I was uncomfortable and quickly pointed out the problem with the age gap. The parents then proceeded to tell me that it was fine since they were married in real life. I tried to stay calm as I pointed out how wrong what they were implying was, and that their 16-year-old son, the brother, was witnessing this. They did not take my, quote, kink shaming very well. Needless to say, I no longer live there, as there were many other problems that this was the start of. But I will no longer be running campaigns until I feel comfortable again. I expect more out of players, and parents no less. Well, that is a bit disturbing. Now, I could understand the father flirting with his wife in-game if their characters were close in age, or even if they momentarily forgot that the mother was playing a child character. But the fact that when OP brought this up, and they told him not to, quote, kink shame, that would have thrown me off as well. And I would probably also not want to DM for them anymore either. I mean, if they want to roleplay that in the bedroom, it's nobody's business. But to try to do so in a game of D&D, in front of the rest of the family, no less, is crossing a line in my opinion. Hopefully, OP will be able to get back into DMing again at some point. But before we move on, if you are enjoying the video, I have to ask that you click that like button and subscribe if you have not already done so. We are getting so close to 30k subs, and if you could help the channel reach that goal, I'd really appreciate it. And so would Simba. See how excited he is? But with that said, let's get into the next post. Player refuses to engage with the setting, by Reddit user The Dungeon Mister. The player in question, Jay, is the significant other of a friend. Both of them have been playing RPGs for at least 5 years. I recently started running a new game of Blades in the Dark. For those who don't know, it's a steampunk dystopia in which it's dark all the time. Everyone's trapped within the walls of the city. Ghosts and vampires are just a fact of life, and electricity comes from monster blood. The players are a band of scoundrels or criminals. This was the first game I had ever played with Jay. During Session 0, Jay said that they wanted to play a human from Earth who had been magically transported into the Blades universe. Everyone else in the group said that this really wouldn't make sense. We don't want to deal with the implications of multiverses or dimensional portals, or any of that. It's a concept that would work in a silly game of D&D, but not here. Jay was visibly frustrated with this, but made a new, in-universe character. The party decided that they were smugglers of souls, ghosts, and arcane stuff related to death. For the first session, their mission is to steal the body and ghost of a powerful drug lord. As we're starting, Jay declares, "Why do we need this body? Ghosts don't exist." I gently remind them that their character would know that they exist. It's not only common knowledge in the universe, but the crux of their party's entire business. Jay just dug their heels in and kept saying that they haven't seen a ghost, so they wouldn't believe in them. Their boyfriend pushed back, and it became a slightly uncomfortable, heated discussion until Jay relented that their character does believe. In Blades in the Dark, every character has a vice, which helps them recover during downtime. Jay decided they were a pyromaniac, and honestly, I thought this was an awesome choice. I've never had a player choose this vice or personality. However, in Jay's mind, this translated to, "I want to burn everything down all the time." The other players started to get frustrated because every mission, Jay would try to throw a Molotov cocktail after they were done, or solve mundane problems with fire, even during clandestine operations. This aspect was pretty funny. On its own, it would be pretty fun to GM for. I only bring it up because of how it compounds with the other problems. Then comes the problem with electricity. As I mentioned above, in this universe, quote, ectoplasm is derived from the blood of leviathans. It's analogous to how whale oil was widely used in our world. At first, Jay's character didn't believe leviathans existed. After dealing with that, Jay refused to use electricity because it derived from harming animals, which is morally incorrect. Okay, fine. A bit weird given the setting, but I don't mind confronting systemic injustices. However, Jay also considered everyone who used it to be evil, which is a problem because literally everyone has access to it. Like, they would enter the house of a friend of theirs who had an electric lamp. Jay would immediately start antagonizing them, dismissing their aid, and acting as if they were going to betray the party. Obviously, this meant Jay wanted to burn down every building they ever entered, with moral justification now. At every turn, Jay was trying to turn their character into someone who was confused by the basics of the setting. trying very hard to force their, quote, Earth human magically transported here into their character, but only ever to be antagonistic to player characters and NPCs, to the point of almost starting a PvP fight because another party member used an electroplasm-powered device during a heist. Why would someone do this? It didn't even seem fun for Jay, and it certainly wasn't fun for anyone else. There was one session before, which Jay and their boyfriend had an argument about this exact thing, and rather than dealing with it like adults, they played the whole session visibly angry and refusing to talk to each other, all while insisting we shouldn't stop playing and that they were fine. But that's a whole nother horror story. Now, Jay is what I like to call the contrarian player. Someone who insists on going against the grain so much that it affects the flow and enjoyment of any game they're in, while thinking that it makes their character interesting. Either that, or Jay was just harboring some resentment towards OP for not letting them use their character transported from Earth idea, and was being contrarian as a form of getting back at OP. Either way, Jay is affecting the game in a negative manner, and I think having a discussion with them might be in order, especially after Jay and their boyfriend brought an in-real-life argument into the game and used it to be passive-aggressive towards one another. But with that said, let's get into today's final story. My players didn't like that I, quote, tricked them, by Reddit user Folksly Stupid. I've been DMing a group, mostly online, for a few months now. This is my first real campaign as a DM, to be honest. I found the group online, and they're really nice people, so we've been playing together for a while. We started out playing twice a week, so our campaign progressed quickly, and we ended up completing what was meant to be a 2-year campaign in just 1 year. When I first designed this campaign, I wanted something intriguing with a twist. I created a BBEG, a deity who had been stripped of their powers under certain circumstances, leaving them broken. This deity began roaming the realms, trying to collect pieces of their scattered divinity to ascend once again. This once divine being wasn't necessarily good, so they chose a less than honest way to regain power. Disguised as a traveling merchant, they began subtly influencing people who shopped at their wandering store to perform specific actions that would allow them to gather fragments of their lost divinity. Not every task was evil, but they weren't always benign either. This character was meant to be a recurring NPC in the campaign, and that's exactly what they became. Think of them as something like the mysterious vendor from Resident Evil 4, always appearing when most needed, and somehow having exactly what the players were looking for. But in this case, coin wasn't what the merchant asked for. Instead, they requested small favors, or set the players on seemingly harmless quests. Yet, looking at the bigger picture, these tasks formed a tangled web, enabling them to manipulate the realm in a very Machiavellian way. The vendor was the epitome of sleaziness. Honestly, I thought I made it clear that he wasn't a good guy, but the players ate up his treasure offers and well-mannered way of speaking, like a frog swallowing a marble. Now, they've reached the point where this vendor has been revealed as an ancient deity, right on the verge of regaining full power. The twist? The players have to grapple with the fact that if he ascends again, it's partially because of their help, which is exactly what I was aiming for. His return to divinity spells disaster. We're talking about fire and salt sweeping the realms, true cataclysmic events. This reveal happened last session, and I'll admit it left the players pretty shaken. Today though, I've received a few messages from them, saying that I betrayed their trust and shouldn't do things that play with their emotions or make them feel that their character's actions were morally gray or even harmful. During Session 0, I mentioned that I wanted to explore something other than the classic, quote, goody two-shoes heroes trope, and they seemed on board. Now though, I feel like a jerk for not considering how distressing this might actually be for them. We've put our campaign on hold until we can figure things out. Honestly, this might not be as horrifying as some stories out there, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm watching my first ever campaign go up in flames, which, believe me, leaves a horrible taste in my mouth. So here we are. I'm hoping that we can continue if it turns out this wasn't as upsetting for them as it seems now. But I'm also coming to terms with the possibility that this campaign might not reach its end. That's my story. TLDR. A reoccurring NPC turned out to be the BBEG, and my players got upset because they unknowingly helped his evil plan. Now, they're not so sure that they want to continue the campaign. Well, in my honest opinion, OP did nothing wrong here. I love it when a good twist comes along in a game of Dungeons & Dragons, and how the players react to it. OP seems to have put a lot of thought into this BBEG, and if I was a player in this game, I would have loved that turn of events. I think that the players might be taking things a bit too seriously and too personally here, and to insinuate that they might not want to continue with the campaign seems like they are holding OP's creative approach to the campaign hostage. Hopefully, the players will get over it, and OP can continue DMing the world and scenario they created. Though, what are your thoughts on this story? Are the players taking things a bit too seriously? Or do you think that OP went too far with this twist? I would love to hear your opinions. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.